Hello everybody and welcome back. Good to talk to all of you again today. And today I've got another replay for all of you. This one from LSR Warrior playing the Queen Elizabeth. It's a replay that I saw in my email a couple days ago actually, but unfortunately for me, I've been a little bit busy working on something and my time zones have been completely flipped. I'm currently living in Asia. No, I'm not, but my time zone is. So I go to sleep at a stupidly early hour in the morning. I guess it'll be early in the morning, and then unfortunately, I wake up at like really late in the afternoon, and so that's done not so nice things for my recording times because I can't really record in the middle of the night in case I wake up the entire house. So, anyways, gonna have to get this fixed, but it's gonna take me maybe another day or so. Anyways. Let's go take a look at this actual replay, and I do apologize for that shift thing that keeps popping up. I think it's popped up twice. It's one of those things that just appeared in replay files recently, and it's yeah, it's not really all that good in my opinion. I mean, okay, I guess in certain shots I'm able to see the reticle, but yeah, I mean, I would prefer that it actually worked when the player presses shift instead of just having me press it every single time. It's a little wonky. Anyways, hopefully it'll go away. Anyways, going back to the replay, I think this replay, when I was watching it, I think this replay had some very, very important, very good lessons for players to pick up, especially if you're not like those really good players. If you're someone who is maybe average, maybe below average, and you're wondering, like, what does it take to get that win rate up? What does it take to get better? This replay, I think, does a pretty good job of, at least reinforcing certain lessons. Now, obviously, there are the normal things that you have to keep an eye open for, right? As a battleship player, you gotta know, when do you expose that side? When do you bring your maximum firepower to bear? When do you stay angled? When do you stay in concealment versus when do you expose yourself, etc. So those are the sort of more common lessons. But there's also sort of the more generalized lessons that can apply to every other ship class. One of those is situational awareness, so knowing how many ships are on the enemy team, knowing how many ships are on your team, knowing where ships are. That can sometimes be a huge factor in whether you win or lose, and you will kind of see that later, right? That one of the players on the enemy team just wasn't aware of things and actually ends up costing the team the win. Alright, so LSR at the beginning, pretty normal, hanging out around the sort of 3-4 lines, and a big chunk of the enemy team is coming in this direction. Again, you'll see that, when he was shooting at that New Mexico, the New Mexico offered him a bit more of that broadside to shoot at. When the New Mexico fired back, you'll see that LSR was in the more angled position. This allows him to mitigate some of the damage. Sure, I mean, there's still shells that hit the superstructure and whatnot, and they'll do a bit of damage, but all in all, comparatively speaking, against a ship that was giving full broadside, for example, LSR is going to be taking less damage overall. Now, yes, this is one of those slightly lower tier battles, which means that there are players who are just not going to be aware of such things, and you'll see that with the enemy battleships. And there you go. Once again, LSR, nicely angled, was able to bounce most of those shots. I mean, it's a very satisfying sound, hearing this clunking sound of shells just bouncing off of your ship. But, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, this is a lower tier battle, which means that a lot of the enemy players, I just don't think they're aware of what these mechanics are and how to use them to their own advantage. And, well, I guess, at times you might be able to say this is Wargaming's fault for not really implementing a proper training scenario in the game to teach players about this kind of stuff. But anyways, I digress. Going back to the battle itself, you'll see it, right? Like, this Queen Elizabeth is starting to turn broadside. Why? There's no real need to, right? No real need to go and offer your side to an enemy battleship who's going to hit you and hit you for good amounts of damage, right? Like right there, those two combined salvo, that's almost 10k damage, right? Another one of those things that can help you when you're dealing with sort of armor angling and things like that is being very aware of a specific ship's sort of arcs. Some ships have very good forward arcs, some ships have very good rear arcs, some ships have terrible arcs, some ships have good arcs all around. And knowing what kind of arcs you have will allow you to angle your ship accordingly, right? Bringing all of your firepower to bear while keeping yourself somewhat angled. And that was a pretty salvo, although maybe a small amount of sync problem there, but not really sure. But 25k on a Fuso, very, very nice. And also, look at that. I mean, that was a beautiful salvo of torpedoes by that DD. My lord. I mean, that was, wow. Perfectly timed salvo. And of course, that very nice salvo by LSR. And that squadron on that side just got absolutely devastated there. QE is very low. The Fuso's gone. Not sure if that was a replay bug. Maybe that's a replay bug. I'm not sure. Elsar, if you see this and you remember the salvo, was that just a bug that occurred where you had that salvo just go crazy, or what? Because that was really weird. Because I know you'd lined up the shot on the New Mexico, and yet the shells went way past. Yeah, that's a bit of a strange one. Anyway, so as you can tell, the enemy team here on this side has pretty much been decimated. Their ships are mostly lower HP now. Queen Elizabeth once again just sailing broadside, just giving it away and making for an easy salvo there for LSR. And that is the first kill that LSR actually manages to bag there with another nice 10k salvo. And you can tell, once again, he gets into a slightly better position, minimizes the damage that he takes in return, right? In a way, you can almost think about it as sort of like an HP trade. So let's say you start against an enemy ship, and you are the same amount of HP, right? And what you can think about is, alright, so if I land a salvo and I do 10k damage, and they are only able to return a salvo for like 4 to 5k, then I'm winning in those trades. And of course, in the long run, if you keep it up, you're going to be able to stay alive while the enemy ship goes to the bottom of the ocean. It's a nice little thing to just sort of keep almost like a running tally on when you're engaging another ship. You kind of know, hey, is this an engagement that I could possibly win? Is it an engagement that I might not be winning? You know, it also gives you a way to kind of grasp a sense of how the enemy player is as well. Like, hey, if I'm in a one-on-one scenario, are they somewhat competent? Do they angle well? Am I going to be able to outright win this? Or are they going to hold their salvos and trade me out on an even basis? In which case, well, that's probably not going to go all that well for me, right? It's just a nice little thing to keep a small running tally on. Enemy Cleveland, well, kind of came out, was pretty much by himself, and LSR has been sort of hitting reasonably decent salvos. Not the best ones. I mean, sure, they could have been better damaging salvos there, but enough to have whittled down that Cleveland quite a bit. New Mexico, well, yeah, that's not going to end well for this New Mexico, because that's a wave of torpedoes, and the New Mexico is, well, still broadside, so a whole bunch of torpedoes going into that New Mexico there. So New Mexico's HP pool is pretty much gone, Cleveland's really low, and both of these ships should be sunk in relatively short order. So let's take a look at the current state of the battle. Enemy team is still up in terms of the number of ships, although we'll see what happens after the New Mexico and Cleveland get sunk. Currently for damage, LSR is sitting at a pretty nice number already, almost 100,000 damage in the Queen Elizabeth, which is a nice amount of damage. Once again, take a look, right? LSR gets a salvo off, goes into an angled state. While in an angled state, he's going to wait until the New Mexico fires a salvo. And this is why sometimes it is very important as a battleship player to be patient at times, right? If the enemy is angled, you're not going to be doing all that great against them. So maybe hold your salvo, wait until the situation changes a little bit more, and then fire. As you can tell, LSR staying angled to the New Mexico, minimizing the damage. The last salvo only did like 4,000, while taking shots at that Cleveland. Again, a little bit of a errant shot there, leaving the Cleveland with like 400 HP. That's like one of the most aggravating things. It's like you get those nice salvos and oh, never mind. Enemy ship still has like a couple hundred HP left. Oh, frustrating. Really, really frustrating. See it? New Mexico again. Didn't hold the salvo. Fired. Did nothing for damage. 1,000 some odd damage. And now LSR is going to be able to come out and get his guns on target. Don't forget, LSR also has an advantage in this particular engagement. He is using the bigger guns that can overmatch the bow of the New Mexico. So the New Mexico really should have tried to show that little bit more of that side, try to bait shots onto the belt armor, but shouldn't have been so hasty to fire those salvos. Didn't really do them all that good. Alright, so now, final chunk of the battle, and this is the part that is kind of exciting. So enemy still has a carrier, enemy has 2 battleships, and they still have 1 destroyer. And their battleships, at least one of them, is still at full HP. This Giulio Cesare, which is a very, very strong tier 5 battleship. This is a battleship that can quite easily go toe-to-toe with tier 6 battleships. So, what is LSR going to do? Since if you take a look at it, LSR is sitting at a lower HP pool, this Giulio Cesare is still full, and of course the destroyer on LSR's team has just been taken out. So right now, the enemy team is in the driver's seat. The win can quite easily be secured. If this Giulio Cesare plays smart, this battle should be a victory for their team. Because what should he really do? If you said, the minute I asked this question, you said, just go ram the Queen Elizabeth, you would be correct. The Giulio Cesare's major play right now is actually to stay angled. Get in there with the good speed, the good maneuverability, get in there and ram the Queen Elizabeth. Because by taking out the Queen Elizabeth, the only remaining ship on LSR's team is a carrier. That's it. That's all that's left. And a carrier can be taken down quite easily by the 1 remaining battleship and the destroyer as well. Instead, the Giulio Cesare takes on the I am going to engage in a bit of a dogfight. Close range, and I'm going to get into a dogfight. Not really the smartest thing to do. Much better to have just gotten angled and gone for the ram. Remember I said the whole thing earlier about showing that side, knowing when to expose your full firepower and when not to? Look at this Cesare making that mistake. Showing that side, look at that. Not a worthwhile trade at all, you know, because on only the forward guns, LSR was able to put in 14,000 damage, and with the rear guns there, that was almost a 20k salvo, and the Giulio Cesare got 3,200 damage. I mean, that's not worth it at all. Once again, why not just go for the ram? Right? Why not? This is the time to have gone for it. Instead, Giulio Cesare opts for a broadside. Okay, this one's at least better for 10,000, but you're also going broadside to the enemy battleship, and they're going to be able to do damage right back at you. Right? And if you remember from earlier, from that last salvo, I mean, Giulio Cesare has taken some damage. Enemy destroyer, the Hataharu, pops up, manages to get torpedoes off at pretty close range, and this, I have to say, was a pretty nice dodge. LSR was able to turn, slow down, while engaged in a brawl with the Cesare, and manages to survive that salvo from the Cesare too, and with the painfully slow turret traverse of the Queen Elizabeth, gets his guns around, bam, finishes off the enemy battleship. Not much HP left though. 5,200 damage. So Cesare made a whole bunch of mistakes in that engagement. But what about right now? Is there any more mistakes being made? Yep. LSR's at 5,000 HP. His primary attention has been turned to the enemy battleship. If you are the Hatsuharu, what are you doing right now? If you said, open fire with your main guns, you would be completely and utterly correct. Hatsuharu right now needed to open up with his guns. Enemy Queen Elizabeth, look at that. Oh, just look at that. Full broadside, going at speed, making an easy shot. By the way, speed is another thing you can manipulate as well, right? It's like if you are initially, let's say, going full speed, right, and you see that the enemy is about to take a shot, slowing down could allow the enemy to completely miss their shot. Turn away, slow down, and shots can go kind of haywire. But yeah, at 5,000 HP, IGN destroyer with their guns, especially a destroyer like the Hatsuharu, would have been able to finish off LSR in very, very little time. Because let's assume that you hit on the superstructure area with 1 HE salvo. You are looking at the very least at, let's say, 1,000 damage. For a destroyer, that's not a lot of salvos, right? And if you get a lucky fire, for example, even better. But instead, the Hatsuharu continues to pretend that all he's got are torpedoes. And, I mean, the combination of the Chezare's errors in the brawl, dogfight, whatever you want to call this, and this Hatsuharu's failure to use his guns, enemy team's going to throw this victory away. Zuiho, I believe, is out of planes, so the Zuiho is not really sure what the Zuiho is doing. Also a bad decision right here. If you're out of planes, don't go running in there, because right now, again, this is a loss of situational awareness. You're out of planes, I get that, but you still have the points advantage. Don't lose a ship for no reason, right? If you can, do not lose a ship for no reason, because you're immediately giving free points to the enemy team. And the Zuiho just should have turned, should have gone somewhere else, should have hit him behind an island, but instead decides to charge in. And there you go, gets killed off, dead. And you'll notice that LSR actually saves that salvo too, just fires one of his turrets, saves the remaining three to engage that Hatsuharu, who has gone, at least for now, back into stealth. There it is. There we go, another salvo off, and is going to bag himself a little bit more damage. Once again, just not sure what this Hatsuharu is doing, right? No idea. Just in this engagement, the best thing the Hatsuharu could have done is dodge, weave, and open fire. At least back then. Now, with 14,000 HP, a little bit harder to do, but still doable, right? The enemy team, their Queen Elizabeth, okay, you know, he's starting to engage the Bogue on LSR's team, which, you know, again, see, had that Zuiho not come out and given those free points away, if the enemy Queen Elizabeth was able to sink the Bogue, then you'd still have that point advantage. Right now they're playing from a points disadvantage, where they now have to kill both the Bogue and LSR in order to win on points, because time is running out. You've got 2 minutes remaining. So you can tell, you know, from a lack of situational awareness, a poor decision making, how what should have been an absolute sure win ends up being a loss, right? And it's very, very possible, and it's very, very possible that the enemy players who misplayed it, that after this battle they never even thought about why they lost. They, in their minds, it could have just been like, oh, you know, this enemy player played really well, or you know, other reasons. They might not have reflected on why they were losing. And that actually is one of the big lessons if you want to improve. Self-reflection. If you are wondering, hey, how do I make sure that my win rate goes up, right? How do I go from 50% player to 55% player? Like, how do I do that? How do I be more consistent? And the way to be more consistent is, after battles are done, reflect. Why did you win? How did you lose? How did these things happen? Right? Is there things that you could have improved? Self-reflection is probably going to be the biggest contributing factor to you winning. Because if you're starting to go like, oh, you know what? I could have played that differently, it would have helped, right? If the Cesare player had finished this battle and said, oh, you know what, in a situation like that, I should have gone for the ram. See? That would have been a win secured. As for LSR, fantastic battle in the Queen Elizabeth. 230,000 damage. The Hatsuharu finally decided he's going to use his guns, but he decides to use his guns on a Bogue. Could have used them on the QE when that QE was at 5,000 HP. Would have won your team the game too that way. A couple of missed opportunities there. But anyways, 230,000 damage is just an incredible amount of damage for a tier 6. You know, this is kind of a damage number you'd see more like tier 8, 9, and 10, but tier 6 to see 200 plus thousand is a very, very sweet amount of damage. Anyways, let's take a look at the final results screen for LSR. 323,180 credits earned. Of course, the net is a little bit less because you got to take away the servicing costs. 5,172 experience. That's a very nice amount of experience. A very solid 100 hits total, 3 citadels there. 44 secondary hits, 7 plane shot down. 230,000 damage, the highest Queen Elizabeth damage total on the NA server right now. And of course, you've gotten the high caliber achievement as well. Look at the base experience, by the way. 2,486, just way beyond everybody else on his team. And as for damage, 225,111 damage from armor piercing, 4,000 from fires. Secondary batteries, well, they hit 44 times, but they did no damage. Oh well, what can you do? And 2.2 million potential damage. Anyways, LSR, fantastic battle. Very well played. Enemy team definitely could have played it a little bit better, and yeah, maybe secure themselves the victory. Anyways, folks, I hope you enjoyed this particular replay. I wish you all a very, very good day. Take care, have a good one, and I'll talk to all of you again soon.